Don't be a cog for Gog and Magog. If you don't know what Gog and Magog were, well, Alexander the Great built the gates of Alexander to keep out the forces of Gog and Magog, the chaotic lower forces of the realm. And that was a symbolic barrier between his civilized Hellenic vertical solar realm and the nebulous chaos that laid beyond that. And nowadays, that symbolic barrier has been completely destroyed. The wolf's head has smashed it down. Grond has laid siege to Minas Tirith, and now it has become entangled with one another. And so I see it as a way to explain this dynamic of why should I be a cog for the system of Gog and Magog? What benefit does it have for me? And what I mean by that is this status maxing, this money maxing, this finance maxing, asset maxing, it doesn't really matter to me. It never really mattered to me. And in fact, I wish I did less of that, even less of that when I was in my 20s. I wish I did more fun maxing. I wish I did more traveling. I wish I slacked off even more. Because when you're in your 20s, you get this messaging that you have to grind, you have to rise, you have to be responsible, you have to do all these things, you have to go to college, you have to start your career. And sure, maybe that was something that you should have done before the forces of Gog and Magog completely entrapped your society. But I don't think that is really necessary anymore. I think that fun maxing, napping is also a really good way to fight off the forces of Gog and Magog. I get my best ideas, I get my best insights, I get my best downloads when I'm napping. Not really fully napping, more like dazing when I'm laying in my bed, just kind of staring at my ceiling, listening to some podcast or what have you. That's really when I get my best messages and insights, is when I'm in this kind of half sleep nap phase. And I think people should be taking more naps. People should be resting longer. People should be sleeping longer. People should be taking it way more easy than they have been and that they are being told to than ever before, especially now that the gates of Alexander have been smashed through. And so I wish I didn't go to college at all. I wish I went more into debt, or I went into debt for traveling more. I really do. And people might think that's ridiculous or that's like counterproductive. But again, I've said this before, but my greatest memories are traveling in Europe. And I'm not saying everyone should do this. This is just what I'm interested in. This is just what I like. And being a cog, a good little cog for Gog in today's world, it doesn't matter. Whatever you could have already gotten in high school is pretty much what you're going to be able to get for the rest of your life. That's kind of what the status metric will be. That's how I've seen it anyway. I'm sure you can rise and status max yourself to the top, and I could try to do that too, but when I just think of what was available to me in my youth, when I had nothing to my name and the things I could get, it's like, why? It would seem fake to me. It would seem contrived at that point if I just status max my way to some sort of fleshly delight or whatever people want to status max for, whatever guys want to status max for, right? And I think for myself, it's just, you're paying tax and you're doing all this stuff for a society that doesn't really care about you, for a culture that doesn't really belong to you, for a world that is moving past you, and I just don't see the point, really. I don't see the point. I don't care. I'd rather take a nap. I'd rather go for a walk. I'd rather go on a trip. I'd rather just enjoy the time I have on this plane instead of losing my mind over the little things, over careers and jobs that don't care about you, that don't matter, that don't really matter to most people anyway. A lot of people don't actually care about what you do. That was one of the things I really liked about Scandinavia, is that nobody asked me what I did. Nobody cared what my title was. Nobody wanted to really delve into that, my credentials. I think that's more of a North American thing, that everybody, the first thing people ask you, what do you do? What is your job? I'm going to start answering that I'm a full-time druid. I am a warlock. I am a fighter of Gog and Magog. I don't care for it anymore. But that's me. I wasn't born into a family of I mean, my specific branch anyway. My specific branch I wasn't born to a well-off type of situation. I didn't have a father. And that's what a lot of things I realized, is that the status largely is passed down paternally for the majority of cases. People like to lie and gaslight you about the American dream and whatnot, but largely your status will be derived from what your father did. And so if your father is deceased, you don't really get anything from that, which in a way let me kind of have the freedom to develop myself 100% into what and maximize my own personality and what directions I actually wanted to go in, instead of having pressure into being what he was. And I think a lot of guys have that pressure from their fathers into following their footsteps and whatnot. And even if they're not of that same spiritual caste and have that conflict between them over the directions of their life, I never actually had to deal with that. But I see a lot of guys do. And so I had a lot of freedom to explore what I want to be, what I want to do. And yeah, I think guys born in like the high, if your dad is a millionaire, and if everything's kind of set up for you, then fine. Go with that flow. If everything's already going to be set up for you, if you're going to go to these top universities for free and you're going to have everything else foot the bill, then I'm not against going to, I'm not going to tell a rich kid to blue collar max. That's ridiculous. But, if you have all these things already granted to you, then just follow through with them. And if you want, at the same time, don't feel like you have to. If you want, maybe you can meme your parents into footing the bill for your backpacking trip to Europe or South America, and say, like, maybe you could just, psyop them into thinking there's some sort of credential involved or something like that, and you can just maximize your life that way. But yeah, that's the only really thing I feel like I wish I did more of. I would and not party as much. Like, I wish I didn't really do those things. I don't think that was really what I wanted to do. I just thought that was what I had to do, and that what was fun. But what actually was fun for me was like para archaeology, like para historian activities, and going to Uppsala and going to Prague and things like that. That was I just what was true to myself, and not what was being told was what I should have been doing. So don't let people tell you what to do, what's maximal for your success, because sure, you can do everything right. You can do all the things. You can have the six-figure career, and then you can end up actually with nothing in your midlife. and you won't even have the memories, and you won't even have the experiences and the joy that you accumulated in life because you didn't fold to the pressure of Gog. You didn't fold to the pressure of the society at large, and you actually went out and did what you wanted to do. I understand there's practicalities involved. You have to have money to do these things. You have to have time to do these things. You have to have certain levels of freedom to do these things. I understand that not everybody has that luxury, has that available to them. But I think the younger you are, the more likely you are able to have that freedom until the forces of life kind of imprison you into your station. So that's what I think people should do. Like, this timeline is so bizarre that you have to grind out your youth in order to enjoy your old age. I think it should be the opposite, you know? Like, you shouldn't have to grind out your youth. It's such a waste. Like, that's when you have the time and the energy and the curiosity and the neurons to be able to go out and to actually take in things and really just enjoy what's going on. And again, maybe you are like a career, maybe like your dream is to be a lawyer. I can see the appeal in that too. I really like, I do see the appeal in that too, but only if it's actually your thing, only if it's actually your calling and what you want to do. And it's not just being hammered into you by the forces of Magog in order for you to be a good little cog in a tax farm for a culture that does not, because it's not two-way anymore. You know, we have to uphold, we're the Atlas, we're the Titans holding up this Gog society, and there's no back pay. There's no, here you are, thank you very much for your service. You know, we don't get thanked for our service anymore. We don't actually have anything that is given back to us from this fake social contract. So yeah, slack off, travel. For me, traveling just comes to mind because it's kind of the ultimate manifestation of individual will when you travel by yourself, because you're just you with nothing. Nobody knows who you are, and you have to go out and make things happen. And if you can make things happen when you're literally traveling alone in a foreign country and things happen for you, it's the ultimate testament of your own force of will and personality. And it's reassuring and it's vindicating that you actually can do things that you want to do. And because people around you are always going to try to be the crab in the bucket. And if you have higher dreams and higher ideals and higher principles for yourself and dreams, people around you are always going to try to crush those dreams. They're always going to tell you that you can't do that you come from nothing, that you won't be anything, that you are nothing, that you won't amount to anything, that you should just keep your head down, keep your nose to the grind wheel, and don't ever bother to leave your little station, little boy. Don't ever try to leave your station. Don't ever dream. That's what I heard my whole life from everyone around me. Some people gave me a little bit of respite, gave me a little bit of encouragement, but it was rare. It wasn't the norm. I think some people are lucky they actually have encouragement their whole lives. Imagine having that encouragement in your whole life, being encouraged to do the things you want. That must be an amazing journey. But I think despite everything, if you can still get out of that negative loop, it's just really a testament of your own vril power, your own willpower going out into the world and seeing if you can make things happen. If you can't make things happen, well, I don't really know what to say about that because I know it's not everybody. I know it's not going to be everybody's life path and everybody's ability and everyone's different, but this is for the people that are on the precipice, that they can make things happen, and it's in their ability to make things happen, but they can't make the plunge, or they're being held back by Gog and Magog, and they can't really go out and do it because they've been just told. I don't think everybody, and that's kind of the reality is not everybody can. Not everybody has the vril power, the willpower, the player one ability to go out and do things like that. But I think there are people who can, but they just haven't had the opportunity, or they haven't had the nudge, or they're afraid of what Gog and Magog will think of them, and it's really unfortunate. I was talking to a friend today, and he says he's having irony fatigue, that everything to him feels like it has to be a joke, it has to be made fun of, you have to put like a plausible deniability afterwards. If you have some sort of higher ideal, you have to kind of slopify it a bit, you have to kind of, make it into a joke, and I totally agree with that. I am a little bit over the top sometimes. That's just my personality. I do like to joke. I do like to make jokes. That's kind of who I've always been. It's kind of the culture I come from too. The bloodline, the RH negative bloodline, and me, you know, the ginger giants and whatnot. There's a little bit of jester maxing going on there, but I 100% can relate. And it's this the culture at large. It is the society that we live in. You're not supposed to be noble. You're not supposed to have nobility. You're not supposed to be a nobility maxer, an aura maxer. That's not what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go down to the profane, to the lowest common denominator, and play in the mud with Gog and Magog. And that's supposed to be like the ideal of life. That's what I this looks maxing thing has been really blowing up lately, and I don't have anything really against it. Like, if you want to make yourself look better, I don't have anything against that. But I just see the aim of it is so unfortunate. Like, the end goal of the looks maxing is to go into the mud pits of Gorgamoth, into the clubs, and roll around with the reek. That to me, just it seems counterproductive if you're going through all this effort to look good just to go roll around in the clubs. And all that stuff is going to really rapidly age you anyway. Drinking and just, I think even just hanging around people like that just ages you. Just like the brain rot, the suboptimal levels of cognition are just going to make you dumber and make you age worse. So, but I don't have anything like actually against trying to look and feel better. Feeling better is important. I think if just feeling better is good. Feel maxing. But yeah, I'm too old, and it's good that Zoomers have all this information. It's too late for millennials to start. Like, it doesn't, like, what's it going to do for me? Like, what's you know I don't know. That stuff is kind of beyond my pay grade. Really, it's not really what I'm focused on, but it's been coming up a lot lately, and in my circles, people have been asking me about it. But yeah, you can't have any higher ideals. Nobility is wrong. Having some sort of noble outlook in life is scoffed at. You're called. I don't even know what they think. I don't think they can cross the barrier of entry to be able to even understand what it means to try to reach for something higher, reach for something beyond yourself, not just, again, wanting to look good for club culture. There's got to be something higher than that in our world, in our realm. And I think our ancestors do proclaim that through their own actions. Otherwise, it would have just always been like that. It always would have just been rolling around in the reek for eternity. They wouldn't, like, why would we have ever risen up to higher levels if that was the case? We wouldn't have the glory of Hyperborea. We wouldn't have the glory of Rome. We wouldn't have the glory of Greece, the Hellenic ideal. None of these things would have mattered if we were just supposed to look smacks in the club. And so now I understand there's going to be a massive draw to that if you can do it. It's easy to, it's easy, it's really easy to snub your nose at that stuff and call it, you know, as I said earlier, low, like rolling around in the reek. And it's easy if you've never had the temptations of that, of what that is. Because again, you know, these guys, these gigamensch, they have a lot of access. So that's, again, it's easy to stub your nose at that and say, like, it's bad, but whatever. If you've been tempted and you know what I'm talking about, a lot of people will just fail. Okay. You will just fail at the temptations because it's what we are as guys. But again, that aspect of the higher ideal, of transcendence, of the solar path has always carried and been carried by us and with us through the ages. So there's something there. And trying to grasp onto that, even if we can just barely do it, slightly do it, just try to keep that flame going. We're not going to be perfect, of course. We're millennials, we're Zoomers, we're inundated with this stuff on the daily. We're not going to be the pinnacle of it. But if we can just keep the flame going, that Olympian flame going, that flame of the north, the polar spirit, if we keep that going within us, even the intention, the intent to grasp onto it is in of itself a asset. It's a achievement. The fact that we're still here, we're still talking about Hyperborea, we're still talking about the heroic ideal, we're still carrying the flame, even though we are literally in the dungeons of Gog and Magog. And our main culture is the culture of Gog and Magog. The fact that we're still here, we're still talking about these things, is a testament to the blood memory of Hyperborea. And it is unmatched. I don't think any other time it would be harder to even try to discuss these ideas. We don't have the Parthenon. We don't have these beer halls or these meeting points where men can discuss higher ideals amongst ourselves anymore. That has completely been squeezed out of the culture. Like the beer hall has been replaced by the club. And what is the main difference between those two? Is that you can't talk in the club. You can't see, you can't discuss. Whereas the beer hall or the Nordic longhouse, I should say, not the Neo-Pelasgian swamp longhouse of the Neolithic farmers. I'm talking about the Nordic longhouse or the beer hall, the mead hall, I should say, the mead hall. Let's not use longhouse anymore. Let's just call it the mead hall. The mead hall versus the longhouse. The mead hall is superior because, and you kind of had respites of this with coffee houses in the Renaissance. Whenever people are allowed to discuss, what we have here, where this is kind of like our mead hall, then we can start to grasp things on the higher level because I think we have that inclination. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Otherwise, we wouldn't bother with it. Otherwise, it would just be the pleasure dome fest We would just try to be maximizing our pleasure, maximizing our, we would just try to be like the fall of Rome. But I think not everybody is like that. And people, there's even guys out there who had the capability of being like that, but are not like that, which, I mean, why wouldn't they be? There must be something else going on, right? There must be something in them that prevents them, or something else that they're striving for. And the Magog Gog house that we find ourselves in today, on every level, on every aspect, it's pushed onto us that we should just forego everything that we hold sacred and just start going to the underground Matrix Zion rave, and we should just live our lives in that rave until it's over. And if you don't want to live yourself in that rave, if you don't want to live life like that, then there's something wrong with you. You're defective. You're this. You're that. You don't want, like, I don't want to be around, I don't want to be around it. Say what you will. And people are going to be around, and that is their being. They are Pelasgians. They are the Etruscans. They are of that line, and that's just what they are. But we're not like that. We're the battle axe culture. We're the Cro-Magnon people of the first wave of Cro-Magnon people who came from Hyperborea. And then the second wave came. We'll talk about the waves of Hyperborea in a different video. I'm working on that. It's going to be good. But yeah, we come from the Cro-Magnon wave, and we're just not like that. We're not the Pelasgians. So the Pelasgians of Gog and Magog. And it's tempting. And I mean, I'm old now, so obviously it's not really like people don't want me there anymore. But when I was younger, it was definitely, it was hard to resist. It really was. And I think that's the thing. You're allowed to find your own path, and just because you're not going to go to because back to Alexander, I did make a video called Alexander and the Power of LARP, and I took it down because I kind of wanted to reiterate it in a better way and reestablish what I was trying to get across here. But Alexander really illustrates this drive towards something higher than just mere materiality, mere flesh pleasure. He was trying to create like a Neue Hyperborean Hellenic imperium, which he didn't have to do, by the way. He could have just lived in his pleasure dome and just did that. But there's something in him that wanted to cultivate that glory, that wanted to strive for something higher. And to me, he really does embody this solar principle of reaching for a vertical style of living and being. And one story about Alexander that I always loved and always liked was when he first landed in Anatolia, he went and he got the armor of Achilles. He could have been tactical. He could have been strategic. He could have done all these things and fought in a way that would have made a much better strategic choice. But instead, he beelined it to his gain the armor of Achilles quest line. And he went to that temple where the supposed armor of Achilles was being held, and he looted it, and he adorned himself in that armor. And to me, that always struck me as something that proves that Not everything in life is about min-maxing your tactics, min-maxing your strategy. Sometimes there's just something romantic in life that you have to achieve and you have to pursue, even if it doesn't really make sense logically or make sense tactically. The story of Alexander looting, I mean, imagine the buffs he would have gotten, +5 to charisma, +10 to horse riding, his aura field would have been increased. It makes sense to me why he would have done that, because I probably would have done the same thing. I would have looted, Ragnar's tomb and gotten his axe, and you get this major buff from having his axe. And something like that. I would have definitely donned the armor of somebody who was, you know, epic. But to like a nerd or somebody like not a nerd, I don't like using that word, like somebody who's like a scientist, they would not be able to understand why he did something like that. They would never been able to understand that at that level, because that's a very hyperborean thing to do. Of course, you know, Alexander wasn't perfect and he died young and his empire was shattered and splintered. But even so, despite him not, becoming the longest ruling or the greatest realm or having the most square footage of dirt under his empire, he still stands out as a great leader, as one of the greatest leaders, and some argue the greatest emperor to ever live, because of the actions and the principles under which he was constructing this empire. Another interesting aspect of Alexander is he went to Egypt. When he went to Egypt, okay, he played into the Egyptian ethos of him and of himself and of God emperors, and that he really did play into that he was an incarnation of the Egyptian deities, and he was really mixing more of a pan-Hellenic, even though Egypt at that time was not Hellenic. He was trying to cross over these old gods, and with the Persians as well, trying to revamp them into more of a Aryan ethos, trying to bridge the gap between the Hellenic world and the Persian world, and trying to pronounce that ancient connection that they had from the Indo-European invasions, from the Hyperborean invasions and whatnot. Which I think that aspect of his empire never really is explored to the depths where I think it could be, because there's a lot of Grecophiles out there who say, well, he was too Eastern. He was leaning too much into the East. He was adopting too much Persian aesthetics and too much Persian traditions and customs. But I think what he was trying to do was trying to bridge the gap between the two ancient Aryan cultures and try to reestablish some sort of bridge and branch point to where they were before they split into their own destinies. I do see, obviously, the Persians were getting more influenced by the Lemurian aspect and the Atlantean aspect of that cultural touchstones. Then the Greeks were, especially the Doric Greeks, were able to carry the Hyperborean flame for a lot longer in a lot purer manner. In my opinion, anyway. I know there's people who say that the Persians were the greatest of all, and and maybe somebody can show me. I'm always open. I'm not going to. I'm not this like cultural chauvinist or ethno chauvinist where I think like, no, it's only the Nordics. It's only Nordic people. Everything else has is awful and terrible. I was just looking at these pictures of reindeer, these Mongol reindeer riders, and I was thinking, man, like I wish I was a Mongol reindeer rider, you know? I wish I got to be born into that culture rather than the plastic slop culture of Western modernity, which is predominantly and was predominantly growing up when I was growing up of Nordic blood. So I can understand. I'm more of a I'm more of like a of casteism, of nobilityism, like nobilism. Like I like to find nobility wherever I can find it and appreciate it wherever I can find it. And I'm not afraid to say, hey, like our our blood, our cultural, okay, and people are going to say, well, you're not really Nordic because you have brown eyes or whatever. And like, yeah, you're right. I am probably diluted or whatever. Like that's fine. But my spirit is Hyperborean. And but I also like to find I also appreciate and respect nobility in wherever I can find it, especially in the Eurasian countries. I see a lot of that flame still there. Um, and I respect it. I think respect is something that's missing from a lot of these dialogues. There's a lack of respect, there's a lack of mutual respect. And honor cultures value respect. I think we should be able to respect people. I think that people obviously who don't deserve respect, but people who do deserve respect should be respected despite whatever cultural or chauvinistic hangups you personally may have. So yeah, respect the Mongols. I've actually been watching Physical Asia. The Mongols are in it. Okay, they are something. There's something there. And whether Genghis Khan was a ginger or not, I don't know. It's possible that he had red hair, but he was like a Eurasian looking fellow with red hair. I can see that. I don't think he looked like Tormund Giantsbane, like some people claim. He probably didn't look like Tormund Giantsbane with his red hair flowing in the steppe, because there's like those Eurasian people in Russia, the Erdmuts or something like that. I don't know what they're called, but they have red hair, but they're not obviously Nordic or Celtic looking. They look Eurasian, but they have red hair. So Genghis Khan was probably of that tribe. And there's something about the Mongols I can respect. I like them a lot. They're cool. And watching that show, it shows you kind of how they have that level of respect for one another. It was very interesting watching the Mongols, Japanese, and Koreans compete with each other. There was something there that was relatable. And then the Aussies come in. Oi, mate. You want to get some brekkie, mate? And they all, oh, yeah, mate. You want to get some brekkie? And they start they start doing cartwheels and backflips, and it's just it's funny to see. Aussies just have that frenzy about them. The Aussies have that wotonic frenzy that I also can respect and can relate to at the same time. Guy, mate, you want to get some brekkie? But yeah, it's just you have to find that within, and I think everybody kind of has a cultural touchstone that where they can reconnect with like an honorable aspect of their own bloodline. For me, like my ancestors come from the Hebrides, right? Which was a Nordic Gaelic kingdom for a very long time. So there's something there that I just relate to on a deep level. And I got people from like Portugal who were saying, "Hey, I'm Portuguese, but I like the Hyperborean stuff." It's like, yeah, you're Portuguese, you're like an Atlantean. That's awesome. There's nothing. I don't think you're like inferior because of that. The Portuguese have done a lot in their history. You should be proud to be Portuguese. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Again, I'm not like these chauvinists. But yeah, I would say in conclusion, to kind of tie everything back together into some sort of working model here, because I know I've been delving all over the place, is that do what you want and go in the direction in your life that you want to do, despite what Gog and Magog tell you. You can be Alexander the Great and loot Achilles' tomb and get his armor if that's what you want to do, if that's what you're being compelled to do, is that what your intuition is telling you to do. You don't always have to follow rationality to its utmost extent. Sometimes following your intuition will take you in a direction that is much better for your own spirit. Thanks for listening, guys. Really appreciate everything and all the people tuning in and watching. And I feel honored that you guys are giving me your time, and I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time.